5, 4, 3, 2.
Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Jeff Colson with the Junior Hockey Advisor. Hey, I am so glad we got back together again. It's been a couple weeks, and I'm extremely excited to get back in the seat and start talking about hockey, the progression. And the theme of tonight is back to basics. We're going to talk about the who, what, when, and where, and why of what we do here, and try to help explain a few of the things we do, and really just get back into the simple things, asking and answering the simple questions. We'll get rolling right now. All right, once again, thanks for popping in tonight. I hope you had a great hockey weekend. I had an excellent weekend. I was in Detroit. Actually, Taylor stayed in Plymouth and was at Taylor for most of the weekend for the Tier 1 Elite, watching mostly U18s. I did get a chance to go over to Oak Park, that's just a little bit north of Detroit, and watch some high school hockey. Watch Brother Rice play against a team from the Upper Peninsula. I think it was, honestly, I don't remember. I watched a lot of hockey this weekend. But I did watch Brother Rice, so I got a chance to watch a little bit of everything this weekend. I got in on Thursday, watched a few practices with some teams, and just thoroughly enjoyed it. Getting out like we couldn't do last year and spending some time in the rink, talking to people, reacquainting with a lot of people. Got a chance to talk to a lot of college coaches, got a chance to talk to a lot of advisors, got a chance to talk to a ton of parents. I got a chance to meet many of you, which was kind of fun, spending a little time chatting with people that actually are part of our discussion group, part of the Facebook page, people that actually use the videos that we do and actually participate on the show that we do, the live stream that we do that we're part of right now. So let's add to some people, and then we'll get rolling. Let's see what we got going here. We have Andy's on tonight from Knoxville. Good to see Andy. We've got Mr. Kim on from Hungary. That's a good one. We don't get too many people in from Hungary. And it's Adony, Hungary. So Vanessa's on, and she's on in Minnesota. Good to see you. Melissa's on from Brooklyn, and good to see you there. I see Dave's on. Dave, where you coming in from? I'd like to know. He says hi to me. Hi back. Jesserie, good name. Cape Cod Mad, but kid plays in Boston. No, Cape Cod, Boston, kind of in the same area. And there we've got Dan in from Sheboygan. Ran into Dan again this weekend. Good to see you on there, Dan. And he's in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, the second best Sheboygan to God's country, which is Michigan. So speaking of Michigan, holy smokes, is there going to be some great football? I know it's a hockey show, but everybody's going to have a little room for college football, just a little bit of room. And holy smokes, what a big tilt we got this weekend coming up. Saturday, Ohio State, I think they're ranked second in the nation right now. Michigan, fifth ranked. Just like the old days, just like back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. You got the two powerhouses going at it from the Big Ten. It'll be a lot of fun. I hope you get a chance to watch it. Hope hockey doesn't get in the way this weekend and that you can actually watch that. That'll be an awesome game to watch. So, and go blue. Make sure you are on the right side of the coin on this one. So, okay. So there's a lot of things. I'll get to your questions. I see the questions stacking up already. And the ones that I can get to, I'll get to. But I just kind of wanted to walk through this weekend. And first of all, I got into a conversation with somebody this weekend that said, all the information you do is great, but you're not invested in education. You don't talk about education enough and how important education is. And maybe there's some truth about me not talking about education enough. And maybe it's just because there's perceptions and there's realities, and there's also thresholds that every different family has. In our family, education is extremely important. My daughter graduated from Michigan, went on and had a full scholarship to Penn State Law. My son has got a 90-something average in college, and he's going to law school once he's done with his MBA as he progresses through. My wife's an attorney. I'm multi-degreed. So I guess sometimes I play it down and I don't talk about it enough. But if you think there's an area that we need to talk about with education, if you think we need to talk about the whole process of the clearinghouse and academics and how they play into this, I'd be glad to talk about that and to go into more detail. I think we should do a show on it. Give me some comments on that, on where you think academics, as far as in relationship to this show, where they should fall into place, and if we need to put more time and effort into it. I can't be more pro academics, and when I'm scouting players, when I'm talking to families, academics is a big part of the conversation. And when I'm talking to coaches about their players, academics is a big part of the conversation. But it didn't really rub me the wrong way. I guess I felt that maybe it was assumptive that I was, pro academic. So moving on, I don't want to bore us on anything like that, but let's get going on the topic of the night. And the topic of the night is the who, what, when, and where of junior hockey. And this is going to take some interactive work on your end. So if there is questions that you want answered about, how this works, the process works, this is a great night to do it. Jump in. I want the theme to be the basics, because many of you are on with me all the time, the live stream, and it repeats, or I shouldn't say repeats. I'm always looking to find things that are new and different angles to talk about. And sometimes I forget that we get, tens of tens lately, but sometimes we get up to 80, 100 new members across the platforms. Sometimes we get more than that. Sometimes we can get 200 new members across the platforms. And we've got this new audience all the time. So we got to spend some time just making sure we get to basics and talk about the basics of the process and the path, moving from 16s to 18s, 18s to juniors, and that could be 16s to prep, 15s to prep, then to juniors, and then moving on from juniors to college. And remember, all roads lead back to juniors. It doesn't matter if you're a high school player in Minnesota, if you're a prep player, or you're playing 16, 18s, all roads lead back. So as we go through this whole conversation, remember, you don't bypass juniors. You don't bypass juniors. Most players are going to play out until they age out, and unless you're good enough that a team wants you early. And that's only going to be if you're playing in one of the top college programs, Division I. Division III programs don't want an early bird, and that is because of what? Because if they got a choice between a kid that's 18 or 19, and they've got a choice between a kid that's already 21, who would you take? The 21-year-old probably has already got past that hump of experimenting, partying, going out, all those things that come along with that 18 to 20 period before you turn 21 and up to 21. Doesn't mean that they're angels when they turn 21. It probably just means that they've calmed down and relaxed a little bit with those extracurricular activities. They're more mature. They're going to do better academically. They're physically bigger by the time they've filled out into a man body by the time they get at that age. So there is no bypassing. You're not going to go from prep school to D3. You're not going to go to prep school to D1. It just doesn't happen. And you can do all this. If you don't believe me, I can always point to the reference points, and you can look all this information up yourself on the 3 websites I always give you, but I only need to talk about one right now, and that is Elite Prospects. You can jump onto Elite Prospects, and you can do all the research yourself if it doesn't seem to fit your narrative. So let's see what questions you have about this, and then we'll jump in as quick as we can on the rest of this. Melissa from Brooklyn, good to see you. And I knew I saw a couple questions come in. Greg, great to see you from Amherstburg, Ontario. Go across the bridge from Detroit, turn right, you're right there. Okay, it's not hockey, but how many AP courses taken by a student can be considered a plus? Okay, so I guess this question is dealing with academics a little bit, and that was a little thing we're going to talk about. Of course, AP credits are going to get you in, but remember, if you're looking to play college athletics, and a school is recruiting you, that's going to be a little bit further down the line versus your skill set, your ability to step in, your overall GPA, your overall package academically, and how you look is going to be more important than just an AP courses or how many AP courses. Now, the academic side of things, the admission office is and how you set up for your freshman year, that's different because AP courses can knock out a lot of the freshman must-have courses that you must do as a freshman. The AP courses can knock those off so you can get into the more fun and advanced stuff or more broad scope of classes when you get to the college campus. So taking AP is great, but don't necessarily think about it as an AP class could be the difference maker, because if a kid that's not taking an AP class has got a 4.0 and you're sitting at a 3.2, but you've got AP, the argument can be made a lot that the grade point is going to come into more in a factor, because once again, unlike a regular student where those things are weighted differently, you're weighted on athletics first. You've got a coach that's pushing, saying we really want him, we really need him on our team. So academics become just a little bit less important on the scale on getting into school. Now, all things equal, those AP courses are going to pay off. In other words, you've got player A and player B, or maybe player A, B, and C that are all recruits, and then they start looking deep. But honestly, most college coaches, unless they're pushed by their admissions office, aren't really going to press on how you got there. They just want to see the end result. They want to see the degree, or they want to see the GPA. So I hope that makes sense. I'm not trying to dispel how important AP classes are, because they're extremely important. And if you're not familiar with the term AP, that's just advanced classes. That's taking classes that are sometimes college credit classes, or just advanced to the point where you could be a sophomore and you're taking classes like a junior or a senior in your school, and you can knock off things quickly and easily there. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Danielle calling in watching in Colorado. Steve's in Baldwinsville. Jeff's in Western Wisconsin. Renee, thank you for the Go Blue. Melissa, thank you for the Go Blue. Got a little spirit going there. Let's see what else we got. Okay, here's one. AAA versus high school for U16. Which is better? Which is a better chance to be seen in Michigan? For a kid without a high school team and having to put the energy into getting better, which spot would be better? So there is no right or wrong answer to this. I can tell you this, Melissa. I was the only North American Hockey League representative, scout-wise, coach-wise, player development, director-wise, at a high school game. Our team was the only one there because we had a couple people from our team there. You went back over to the Tier 1 Elite, or you go to the HPHL rink, and there were 30 Division I coaches, junior coaches, scouts, advisors. At any time, there was just a big group of people over the course of the weekend. Probably 75 to 100 came through the doors, to watch the Tier 1 Elite. So clearly, there's more exposure playing Tier 1 Elite than the majority of the high school players are going to see all year long. Towards the end of the year, you'll start seeing some more high school people watching high school, because the kids that are graduating, there might be some talent there. But usually they're coming to watch one kid or two kids on a team. They're not going there to look at the whole roster like they do for a Tier 1 Elite event. So the answer is the exposure is going to be, especially in Michigan. Now, you go to Minnesota, it's a whole different ball game. You'll get to some of the playoff games towards the end of the year, and the crowd is just chocked full of Division I, Division III, and junior programs watching the Minnesota high school playoff system and watching games there. So you're talking about, and you even got NHL there too. So you're talking about a little bit of a different scenario there. Prep will get some, but not as much as these showcase events get. Now, preps will have their own tournaments and showcases too, but it really, the HPHL, the Beast, the Tier 1 Elite events at 16 and 18, they're really, really getting great numbers because they make it convenient. They play in convenient cities. They make it easy for coaches to come see the kids play. Whereas a high school program might be in a single rink where you only got one game for the night. They're usually like Oak Park, not the easiest rink to get to, not the best sight lines, and it's a little bit harder to watch because it's a really rabid high school crowd. And I say that because it's fun and it's very social. But if you're trying to work and there's no real room to be writing notes, or you're getting jostled around, or people are screaming, from my perspective, it's a little harder to do. But that goes to the territory. It'd always be nice to see crowds, though. So hopefully that helps. The answer is across the board, Melissa, you're going to get more exposure playing on elite U18 teams in Michigan. Now, with that said, don't think that there aren't avenues with the high school programs. Literally, we were there to watch a high school team on Saturday or Friday night. We went to watch Brother Rice and watch a few of their players. So you will get people watching you, just not the same numbers, and not the bulk that comes along with other areas. So, so then we got a question that came in from Sean. Same question as Melissa: AAA or D1 high school prep in Mass. Now, see, Mass, you're morphed, okay? You've got three models. We've talked about this before. You've got your Minnesota high school model, which pretty much dominates high school hockey. If you're going to play juniors at a high level, Minnesota high school is probably one of the areas that's most consistent. They put a third of the players into junior hockey and in Division I hockey. Then you have what's called the Michigan model, which is anybody that's playing 16s and 18s. Doesn't matter what state you're in. They call it the Michigan model because that's where the hub of Tier 1 hockey has kind of always been. That's your name brand programs that everybody knows about, your Little Caesars, your Honey Bakes, your Victory Hondas, your CompuWares, your Oakland Junior Grizzlies. Who am I missing? Bell Tire, all these iconic brands, and they're all sponsored programs. A lot of them with their own rinks, and they're the epicenter. That area is for Tier 1 Elite. Now, it doesn't mean that's the only place you can play Tier 1 Elite or play Tier 1 on the elite level, because you've got the Beast on the East Coast, you've got AYHA, you've got the HPHL out of Chicago and Detroit. But in Boston, in the East Coast, in Mass, you've got a little bit of high-end high school hockey that can compete at the same level as the preps, but not a lot. You don't have 30 programs. There's a handful of programs, just like Michigan has a handful of high schools. But that prep model is the third head of the monster. So you got Michigan hockey, which is Tier 1 Elite 16-18. You got Minnesota high school hockey. Then you've got prep. And I would throw the elite high schools in the Boston area into that prep category too. Now, when you're talking about that, prep runs up and down the East Coast. You've got a couple. You've got Shattuck that sits out of Minnesota. You've got Culver. You've got the programs up in Lake Placid. You've got you've got Gilmore. You've got other prep programs across the nation, but the vast majority sit in that Mass area. Those programs do get exposure, and those programs do kick kids in. They get lots of kids that'll get commitments right in those programs. Before they leave to juniors, they're already carrying their D1 commit. And there's lots of kids that'll move on to the BCHL, lots of kids that'll move on to the USHL, move on to the North American Hockey League, right out of that league. So it is league, I should say, out of prep hockey on the coast there. So with that said, now here's the interesting thing. This is why I say it's morphed on the East Coast. You look at a team like the Buffalo Regals U18 team. The Buffalo Regals U18 team out of Buffalo may have one or two Buffalo kids on the team, but they've got kids from Salisbury. They've got kids from Choate. They've got kids from all over the East Coast prep hockey market. This is a hybrid team that plays throughout the year. They don't just play a few games before the season starts. I just watched them play last week. they'll play throughout, limited, but they'll play some Sunday games and some weeknight games all the way through the year to stay eligible for states and potentially nationals. That's why there's so many kids that play on these hybrid teams too, that you're getting the best of both worlds sometimes when you play on the East Coast, because a lot of these prep players will play on a U18 team. And if they're younger, they'll play on a U16 team. And what's interesting about it, just like the Regals, they become an all-star team. So their U18 experience, even more people want to watch them play on that U18 team because it's kind of chock full of really, really good players. Now, I don't want to say that I know that Buffalo Regals good enough yet compared to the rest of the prep market to know if they're, all stars on their teams, because I haven't had a chance to really get to see, prep hockey yet this year. I've really been focused on the U16, U18 model for the most part. But I do know that Regals team is really good for U18. It's a top 10 team right now, and it's got some of the best players that I've seen at U18 so far. So I got to assume that's going to translate over. So you get kind of the best of both worlds when you play on the East Coast and in the Boston market. So hopefully that helps a little bit. That's a great question, and I appreciate that. So Vanessa has got the same question, but for a U16 goalie, AAA, starting varsity with split season AAA or out-of-state Tier 1? Boy, that's a good question, Vanessa. If you're in Minnesota, if you're in a situation where you're on one of the competitive teams and your team is competitive in the league and you've got quality players, really playing that short split season at the beginning, which is the same thing they do in the Boston area, but it's just not as popular in the Minnesota area. If you can play on that and then play on your high school program, that's usually enough to get you to the next level. Now, you have to do your homework on this. How has your team done in the past? How is the production off your team? If you've got a historically powerful team, it doesn't matter which level of, because there's several levels of, I don't know if it's ABC or Tier 1, Tier 2, but Minnesota has their tiered structure of teams by the size of the school. It doesn't necessarily matter because some of the smaller schools have just powerful programs. You just have to make sure that there's been production there, that the coach is connected with colleges and with junior programs, and that there's been an output, that you've seen the players that have left the program have actually gone somewhere and actually done some things. Now, if you don't feel like that's the case, unfortunately, the only option you have is to leave the state, because most people don't know this about Minnesota. Everything's drawn, the travel teams are drawn on the high school lines, so your travel and your high school are virtually the same thing. The all-star teams at the beginning of the year, that sets apart. They let those teams cross the borders. But kids grow up playing within the districts. So if your district is weak, which sometimes that does happen, some kids do leave the market and move to other markets. There's several kids that I watched this weekend that are playing Tier 1 Elite, and I can't remember which cities. But let's just say the same, the greater Midwest area Tier 1 Elite that were Minnesota players the year before and left because their school wasn't on the top of the rung and there wasn't production coming out of it. So great question, Vanessa. Boy, oh boy, the people just love, we're onto something here. Melissa says AAP qualifies the student to take the AP exam. A good so I left that part out. Good point, Melissa. When you take an AP course, you can take the test at the end. If you do well on the test, it gives you the college credit. I guess I didn't explain that as much, and thank you for the good sage advice coming from a qualified high school teacher. What you probably don't know is I have a master's in education on top of the MBA, and went down that road for a very, very short time. I'll get into that story sometime, but it's not teaching in the classroom and Jeff didn't go hand in hand. And there's a lot of reasons why, but I guess I'm just a little too black and white and literal, and it wasn't a good fit. But I only did it for a very short time. We're talking about a couple of months of long-term subbing, and I realized that it just wasn't for me. Okay, let's see what else we got here for questions. So Richard says that Long Island has a NA 3HL team, an NCDC team, and a Tier 1 elite. So confusing to wonder. New Jersey has good teams nearby. So I guess the question coming out of there, Richard, is that you've got different options coming out of the Long Island area. Remember, Tier 1 elite, you can be on the best North American NA3HL team, and all due respect for the North American Hockey League and the NA3HL, I'm not trying to put them in any category, but you can be playing on the best team in the NA3HL on the East Coast, and you may never get looked at by a Division I college coach. You'll be playing on a mid-level Tier 1 elite team, and you'll get multiple looks from Division I coaches over the year, because every showcase you go to is going to be chock full of junior teams and teams and Division I college teams along with Division III. So if you just put it in that perspective, now the NCDC model is a little bit different. Some of their teams get a lot of exposure, some of them don't. Their showcase will not draw a lot of Division I talent. They get the ham and egger coach going back and forth to his own rink in the Boston area that says, I got dinner at 6. I'll catch a game or two over at the showcase and then go home. Or on the way to practice the next day, he'll look at his watch and say, I'll get up a half hour early and go watch a period or two before I go to my college rink, because there's so many college programs in the Boston area. But even though there's so many colleges there, the NCDC doesn't draw a lot at their showcases. So they'll trickle in here and there, but the numbers are absolutely nowhere near what the North American Hockey League gets, what the USHL gets, what the AJHL, the Alberta Junior Hockey League, gets out in Canada, and what the BCHL gets. Those events, and the number 4 ranked of those 4 leagues as far as showcases is the AJHL event, and that's still hundreds of coaches, D1, NHL, D3, and other junior programs coming out to watch there. So, you won't get that in the NCDC or the NA3HL. Tier 1 Elite is the closest thing you get to those 4 big dog junior programs as far as exposure, and you'll get that several times a year, because every Tier 1 Elite team, I don't know if it's 3 or 4 now, but they attend a local showcase, a West Coast or Midwest showcase, a Detroit showcase. They're every year they're trying to get in at least 3 showcases. So yes, you will be seen by more bodies if you're attending one of those events, if that helps at all. All right, let's see what else we got. Man, we got lots of them coming in. The approved online programs are okay as long as no one changes it at all. I teach online too. Oh, that was just, I guess there's some conversations going on between different people. So, okay, we got all that covered. So let's just back up a little bit and let's see. Just want to make sure I don't miss any other questions that are coming in across the board here. I don't want to get in the way of your conversations. I love it when you guys get the conversations going back and forth. Okay, somebody just came in. Troy just came in and says, I don't know if you've talked about it, but what's your take on the Omaha and the USHL? Yeah, I was gonna leave this one till it kind of flushes out. There's been rumblings for a while now on how this whole situation was playing out. For those of you who don't know, you can always go back to our. I think I posted it both on our group and on our page, Junior Hockey Advisor page, Junior Hockey Advisor group. We have a team in the USHL. Coach is left or fired, depending on who you asked. The staff left or was fired, then came back, meaning the assistant coaches and the scouts and the rest of the staff in the building. Players were going to boycott, and it came down to things like starting to take away some of the amenities that are not just assumed, but are part of the process at the Tier 1 level of junior hockey, and that's things like post-game meals, equipment, all the things that were starting to be taken away to save money was causing some angst and some strife. Because remember, If you go play Tier 1 junior hockey, everything's supposed to be covered. Your skates, your sticks, your meals, your billet, everything is covered. You don't pay for anything across the board. When you travel, your breakfast, lunch, and dinner is covered. Your hotels are covered. They take care of their players. So there's a little bit of talk about how management had changed and restructured a little bit, and the new management that came in didn't have a full grasp on things and thought they were doing a good job by cutting the budget on things. I really don't know if I want to speculate much more. I had a lot of conversations about this over the weekend, but it was mostly speculative. And there's some articles on there. Sports Illustrated's written an article. You can Google a bunch of articles that'll give you a little bit of an insight of what's going on. But I think I'm going to leave this one a little bit until I get a little bit more information. I'll be glad to comment on it once I get a firm footing on really who did what and what's truth and what was just what's fabricated at this point. Because there's even with some really respected people that I was talking to in the rink this weekend. Division I coaches, either assistant or head coaches, nobody's really got a clear story on this. So I'm going to let it lie for a little bit. We'll come back to it. I won't forget it. In the past, I've hit these things right between the eyes, and I'll give you not only what I know, but I'll also give you an assessment of how things work and why they happen. Troy, I'll get back to that one. It's a good topic to talk about, especially because here's the big thing. This is what I can tell you when we get back to basics. Remember, the reality is there's only 13 teams in the USHL. That doesn't leave much room for players that are moving up. On top of that, there's only 29 teams in the North American Hockey League. So you're talking about a very limited amount of hockey. Then you talk about hundreds of opportunities at the Tier 3 junior level. When I say 100, there's well over 100. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but it wouldn't be hard for me to figure out. I've got it in a lot of my different videos and different writings. But let's just say that number's 150 teams. Lots of choices to play Tier 3 hockey. You can play Tier 3 hockey coast to coast. Some of the things you got to look at, especially when you're paying a price tag, $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 to play on one of these teams. One of the things that really comes into play is, what are the amenities? Okay, do they give the kids a tracksuit? Do they travel on a team bus? Is the team bus a sleeper? Is the team bus a yellow school bus with high backs and no place for your knees? Do they pay for all 3 meals on the road, or do they pay for 1 meal on the road? Do they pay for no meals? Those are the things to ask ahead of time. What equipment is given to the kids? Gloves, helmets are usually normal. Pants, gloves, helmets, jerseys, and socks. That's a normal package for a Tier 3 team. But you have to ask those things. Do you get to keep the gloves at the end of the year? Do you keep the helmet, or is all that stuff turned back in? When you start asking all these questions, you get a better feel of how organized the team is too, and how exact they are in their budget. I can tell you there's some Tier 3 teams that just take care of you like royalty, and they keep the price reasonable. There's other teams that are extremely high on their price, and they try to cut the corners on every area. Here's the way a team will cut the corners. Throwing, after a game, when you get back on the bus, throwing 5 cheese pizzas, just cheese pizzas, into the back of the bus and say, here you guys go, really isn't feeding the team. The usual way of looking at it is half of a large pizza per player. So if you got 30 kids on the bus, it takes 15 pizzas to take care of them. A lot of teams will throw 4 or 5, 6 pizzas in the back and assume that as long as the kid gets a slice, they did their job. A lot of them will stay at really, really low-end hotels that have breakfast, but it's cold breakfast. They'll have a couple cereals, they'll have a couple yogurts, and then you'll play on other teams that ensure that you have a hot buffet breakfast at the hotel, where you can come down, you can get your eggs, you can get your bacon, you can get your breads, and still get your cereals and your oatmeal and whatever else you want to eat. So those are the kind of things you look for at Tier 3. You want to make sure that you got a safe bus. You want to make sure you're being fed and that you're equipped properly. And I've made the mistake before. I've listened to my players that say, hey, we want more than just suits. We want a vast array of hats and scarves and different jackets and the choice of all things. And I've went out and I've actually put packages together. They don't wear any of it. And then the next year they ask for it again. I say, okay, I'll give you an a la carte menu. I'm going to buy your tracksuit for you, and anything else you want on top of your tracksuit, you guys can order and you can pay for it yourself. And they go crazy and they buy everything. So you just don't know year to year from an owner's perspective how things are going to work. But as a parent and as a player, you clearly want to make sure you talk about all those things ahead of time. How many kids sleep in a room? I've seen teams that'll take a room that has 2 queen beds and put 5 players in there. They'll put 2 in each bed and 1 on the floor. 5 players in a room, that means that the team's only getting a few rooms. That's excessive. Now, we would put 3 in a room, but we also provided air mattresses and extra pillows and extra blankets for the player that it was. Technically 2 kids can sleep in the same bed. Some guys just don't like that. If they don't want to sleep in a bed with another player, we always provided air mattresses for them so they could sleep on the floor on a real quality, nice air mattress. But 5 in a room, 4 in a room, that gets to be really, really cramped for the junior level. So, okay, let's see what else we got. That was a great question. Thank you. Have an 08 goalie. This is from Jessery. A new prep school will be opening this summer near us. They will have a U14 team. Too young for prep school. Will it really make a difference at that age? So the question about prep school at a young age is, at 14, a couple things. Assume if you come into prep school at your freshman, sophomore year that they're going to ask you to repeat a year. It's extremely common. Or they're going to ask you to do a post-grad year, a PG year. Extremely common. The reason is it's a business. They want multiple years out of a kid. They don't want a kid to come in as a junior and just be there a junior, senior. It's not good for the fiscal responsibility of the school. They want 3 or 4 years out of you. So coming to a prep school early could mean you're actually going to repeat a year. That's not always necessarily a bad thing. Usually, mostly when kids get recruited to come in at varsity hockey, they get recruited during their sophomore year and they're asked to repeat their sophomore season or their sophomore grade, which is very common. So part of it is, excuse me, part of it is just having that assumption that they're going to usually ask you for another year. Is it a bad idea to get going at that age? Absolutely not. If you want to play there, if it fits academically for what you want to do, is there an advantage of getting there? Well, with a new school, it's kind of hard to say if there's an advantage or not. And the reason I say it that way is if there's a traditional program that draws from the kids that they have that are young and they all traditionally move up to the next team, well, then there is an advantage to be there. With a new program, there's no history of how many outsiders do they bring in to fill in the next level up. And usually there's freshman, JV, club, and their varsity team, or sometimes they call it the prep team at the top. So you really have to know what, how they're going to recruit and how they're going to fill that next level above you. Is it a bad idea? No, it's not a bad idea. But I'd factor in all the other things that go along with it. Is this a commuter school? Is it an overnight program? Are you ready to get rid of your kid at 14 if it's an overnight program? A lot of people on the East Coast are so used to it that going to prep school at 14, 13 years old is no big deal. It's just the way the families run things. So I can't answer that for you. I can tell you, though, that I would do a little homework on, how they plan to progress players up to the next level. And that's probably the biggest thing that I would look at. And also, what league are they going to play in? Is it going to be a competitive league? A new program, they could start off weak. If they start off weak, are they going to play independent? Do they already have a league lined up? And how competitive is that league? That's a question I would ask right away. Great question. Let's see what else we got. Okay, so Mr. Kim says maybe USHL teams struggle due to the COVID in terms of income in recent years. Yeah, that very well could be, but a couple things happen on USHL teams. Clearly, every USHL team struggled last year because the fan base. And remember, these are the North American Hockey League sans the East Coast and the USHL, the BCHL, and the Alberta AJHL, Alberta League. They're all fan-driven leagues, okay? They are businesses first. So when you go to play in the North American Hockey League, when you go to play in the USHL, it is entertainment dollars that come in the door. So you're absolutely right. These teams got crushed last year, but that brings up a good point on how you put this into perspective when you get recruited by these teams and you go off to play for them. You're a commodity. If you're not going to help put butts in the seats, they have no need for you. It's that simple. There is no loyalty to players in the USHL, or now coaches might like players, but the bottom line is if you're not producing, if you're not helping, put butts in the seats because the team's competitive, they're lively, you're an energy guy that throws your body around a lot. Maybe you get in a scuffle here or there. You put pucks in the net. You play great as a goalie. All those things put butts in seats. These are all businesses that are driven on fan base. Tier 3 hockey is not built on fan base. The NCDC is not built on fan base. East Coast Hockey League is not built on fan base. All those other junior leagues are not fan driven. The owners look at the bottom line first. So yes, I could understand how this team could have got themselves in trouble because they started cutting back on things. But there's certain things that the USHL just absolutely adamantly will not yield on as far as what the team does with their players. So the players have to be taken care of at a certain level, or you're just not going to be a franchise. They're gonna take the franchise and hand it to somebody else. So a great question. All right, this one says, this is from Sean, and says, hey Jeff, thoughts on the viability of the WSHL going forward, especially with 3 teams in the Northwest Division going dormant and 2 playing in the Provincial Division League in Canada. So the WSHL is the Western States Hockey League. It tends to be really driven towards partial D3 commitments come out of that league. A lot of ACHL College Club come out of that league. And there's some decent players from time to time in the league. A lot of the Western States leagues have a lot of fans. They get really good fan bases, and you're playing in some really cool places in Utah and New Mexico, Washington State. And so the life experience in the WSHL is unbelievable. You get to really see some things, and your social side of things can be really, really cool. The viability of the league going forward, we already saw a mass exodus of teams to the USPHL 2-3 seasons ago. We lost part of the Western States League to that other league, and then the pandemic hit them right away. I don't see right now how they can survive without making a deal with somebody. They've got to strike a deal. They struck a deal with some independents up in Canada. That's what turned that whole Canadian division into what it is right now. These teams all play under AAU rules. AAU is actually older than USA Hockey, except AAU is respected as a national voice or an international voice in summer sports, track, field, wrestling, things like that. And hockey, USA Hockey, is the governing body. So it takes a second seat to USA Hockey. I don't see a viability for this long run. They've got to make a deal with somebody. I think some of these teams will survive. I just don't think they're going to survive as the Western States Hockey League. There would have to be some massive influx of new cash to bring in some major teams, either taking some back from the USPHL, which could happen. Remember, every time in the past that you get these super groups of teams together, they start realizing they're not getting any love from the main group. They start realizing they can do things better if they're a group of 8 or a group of 10, and then you'll start seeing some fractionalization again. They'll start getting these splits with the junior groups that'll break off. So I predict that we'll see that with the USPHL at sometime soon, where you'll see some groups break off and go back into other groups. And maybe the timing's good where they want to break off right when the Western States League needs them the most. But if that doesn't happen, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to survive. I think that We've seen better days in that league. I'm surprised they lasted as long as they did. So, all right, Melissa says, better coach versus better team for young players. Should a player sacrifice learning to get in a better program for a chance to keep a spot, or play for a coach who will really develop a player more? So that's a great question, but here's a few things I want to, youth coaches love to say they're development coaches, and they develop. You got 20 kids on the ice, you got a 50-minute practice. Tell me what you're really going to do in that 20 minutes or 50 minutes, or excuse me, with those 20 players in 50 minutes that's really working on skill development. And I'll tell you that unless you're working with a private instructor for development, you're never going to develop if you're looking to improve your skills to keep up with the top. Okay, ice time is important. Skill development comes from being on the ice. Now, that sometimes for kids, that's a frozen pond in the backyard, and then get a lot of ice and improve with their muscle, their biomechanical side of things, their muscles, their strength, their posture. A lot of things just fall into place if you're on the ice a lot. Other kids take private lessons, work with skills instructors. They work on skating treadmills, shooting rooms. All these things come into play. But I'm not a big fan of youth coaches that say, I'm a development coach. You don't have time to develop individual players. You have to teach them how to play the game system-wise. You have to teach them how to face-offs, how to change, how to kill a penalty. There's so many things that a coach has to do, how to flow drills, how to pass, how to shoot. All those things are things that are part of the game, not so much on the skill development. I guess passing and shooting can correlate, and a lot of drills can correlate, but I'm just not a big fan of picking a coach because he's a development coach. That's just my personal opinion. Many people don't agree with my take on that, but I would much rather see skills work being done with a skills instructor, power skating being done with a skating instructor, and letting the coach your kid and teach him the game and the game side of things, how to do things right on the ice, how to see the ice better, and how to flow better on the ice to be a good player. So, that's part of it. But the question, getting back to it, is a better coach or a better team. The statistics prove out all the time. The better team you're on, the more opportunities you're going to get. This weekend, I'm watching the number 2 team in the nation play the number 10 team in the nation, and it's packed with scouts. It's packed with college coaches. You get done with that game, and then the number 60 team is playing the number 90 team. And I'm making that up. I can't remember the exact numbers. I knew the 2 and 10, but it was 2 very low-ranked teams, and you saw the tumbleweeds going across the ice. There was just no enthusiasm. There was nobody watching the game except for the parents and girlfriends, and that's the reality of it. Now, when I say that, it wasn't that bad. There's still some junior programs watching. There's still some colleges watching, but not the way the higher-ranked teams get. The higher-ranked teams always get the love. They always place the players. A mid-level kid could be just the same exact mid-level kid on a top team and a mid-level kid in a middle-level team, maybe ranked in the 70s or 80s. The mid-level kid gets the benefit of the doubt on that top team. So the team that's playing, that's ranked 2 in the nation, that's getting all this love from colleges and junior programs, that mid-level kid on that team gets the benefit of the doubt that he can play at that level. It could literally be his twin brother playing on a team that's ranked 70. That mid-level kid, there's a stigma and a bias that is not the same level of player, that they can't compete at the same level. Bizarre, because it's the same league, it's the same level player, just not on a team that's successful and surrounded by the talent on the top end. So I guess the answer to that would be, I would always try to play on the highest competitive team I could play on. Get in the best league I can get into, and get on the best team in that league I can get into, always. Even at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, it's important. Now, with that said, if you can't, then you look for don't get me wrong. Usually, if you look at the Tier 1 Elite, the HPHL, the Beast, the higher teams usually have the more competitive coaches with a little bit better resume as far as coaching. The number 2 team in the nation right now is St. Louis. You look at St. Louis, Who's behind the bench on that team? Jeff Brown. Who's Jeff Brown? He had almost 600 goals in the NHL, played for 18 or 20 years, and then he coached in the North American Hockey League, and then he coached in the OHL, and then he coached a little bit more in the North American Hockey League. Now he's coaching U18. So you got a guy that was an NHL pro for years that's just got all kinds of information to pass on to these kids, and he's got major junior and tier 1, tier 2 junior experience. That's the kind of guy you get on these top teams. In the past, it's been the guys like Jason Deskins. You got guys like Brian Burke and Victory Honda. And Deskins was at Honey Baked, and then he was at OJG. These names are guys that are just thick on the resume. But you go down to that 70 or 80 or 90 team, you're not going to get that same resume. You're going to get it on the top team. So, and those guys are connected. They can help push along the way. And connected is a relative term. So if we're talking at 12, 13, and 14 years old, you still have guys that are connected to the U15 teams and connected to the U16 teams. So you want to make sure you're always trying to play for the best team you can. I hope that helps. Let's see what else. I don't know. I think that might be a good time to call it a night. We covered a lot on questions, which was awesome because it's the back to basics. Your questions, a lot of them just brought us right back to the roots of what this live stream's about. I had a blast tonight, folks. I can't wait till next week. Remember, I still have a price discount on Chaos Calls. I'm going to be limiting them because of the holiday, and then after the holiday, I am heading to Panama, and my wife and I are going to go on a cruise. We're going to go down to the Panama Canal, do some things for about 10 days, and then I'll be back after that. So if you're looking to do Chaos Calls, they've been extremely hot lately. I've been talking to a lot of you on crossword stuff. Crossroads, not crosswords, meaning you've got a decision to make. You want to walk through a decision process. You want to, get an outside opinion on things. That's what these calls are for. I'm not a family advisor. I'm not going to try to hook you up with a team. I'm not a good reference point for who you should hire, but I can walk you through some of the major decisions you have to make and decisions that come up in hockey. The calendar's been full the last few weeks on these calls. I'm going to stop on Wednesday. Of course, I'm not going to do Thursday or Friday, and then I'm going to be out of town for 10 days. But you can still schedule now for a little bit of time this week and for once I get back in the mid-December weeks, we can chat too. So, and if there was really an emergency, I'm sure I could find a way to help you if need be. Have a great night, folks. Good to see you all in here. It's great to see a big audience tonight. And, by the way, we added LinkedIn for the first time. So these are now being broadcast live on LinkedIn too. So we've got a platform going to 7 or 8 different areas, including LinkedIn now. So have a great night, everybody. Enjoy your hockey week. Go Blue, and we'll see you next week.